Good morning, dear friends. Today is day number 95 of our run/exercise, and it's going to be another author today. Yesterday we spoke about the masculine and wild life and writings of Ernest Hemingway, his difficult childhood and his bouts of alcoholism that affected him and caused his depression and death. And today we're going to be speaking about someone else who was also a brilliant writer. I read many of his stories and liked them. As opposed to Hemingway, I must admit I didn't like his style as much. This writer I'm dedicating today to, his name was John Chaney. Not Dick Cheney, John Chaney. But later on he will be known to all as Jack London. So Jack London was born in 1876. So putting things a little bit in perspective, it's he was born in California in San Francisco. We spoke about Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was born in 1889, right? So here we're 1876. And his mother, she was believed she had energy coming from the incarnation of the Indian chief Black Hawk. And his father was an astronomer. And when his mother got pregnant, there's a question whether they were married or not. Believed to be out of wedlock. The reason there's questions about it was because an earthquake in 1903 caused all the information to burn, including the house where he was born. Today, in the 1950s, they put a plaque to recognize the location. But anyway, his father said that she has to have an abortion. She did not want to have an abortion, and she tried to commit suicide. She shot herself, not very successfully, luckily, and she gave birth. She survived, healed. She gave birth and gave her son to a nurse who acted as her mother, his mother. And she was a freed black slave. And often in his stories he would mention her, and she was a mother figure for him for many years. Soon after, she married another person, last name London, and she took her son with her. Interestingly, oh boy, there's so much to tell about Jack London and his life. But if you read two stories, Martin Eden, you'll have a lot of information about how he struggled as a writer. And he said that he almost gave up writing because his first story that was accepted for publication, he only received $5 for that, and even those $5 were not being paid to him on time. It was being held away from him until finally one of his stories later on in the magazine called The Black Cat received $40, and he was elated. And he began his career and did not stop. Later on would be propelled to fame by the publication and popularization of The Call of the Wild, later on White Fang. So walk back a little bit in stories. At the age of 13, he was already working about 18 to 20 hours in oyster pirates ship, which he bought. And at the age of 13, you can't be surprised, and the boat was really for the most part destroyed after a few trips. Okay, Ross is already here, so try to reach the end. He sent a letter. He was looking for his father. He sent a letter to his father, and his father talked. Good morning, Ross. I'm telling about Jack London's. It's an interesting story you will like. So that's it. We're not waiting for...
He's coming at 7:30 for his own round.
Oh.
Tomorrow he's going to be with us.
Oh, okay, fine. So I was talking about Jack London. His biological father, whether they were married with his mother or not, is difficult to tell. But because there was a fire and destroyed all the documents. In 1903, there was an earthquake in San Francisco. He described it in 1906. But he wrote a letter to his father when he was 21. And he, just wanted to know about his birth and just say hello. And his father said to him, you know what? I'm impotent. You're not my son. And your mother, basically slept around. And I did not want her to have an abortion. She lied because she said he wanted her to have an abortion. She shot herself and later gave him to a freed slave woman to raise. So anyway, he was so devastated that he left Berkeley. He was there only for a year. He was studying very hard for the exams, and the person who he first married, the first marriage, was someone he married out of respecting one another. He called her mother girl and she called him father boy. They really didn't have much love to one another. And she was the one who tutored him for the exam. She was a tutor to get into Berkeley, and he was studying in a saloon, if you can imagine. Now it's called the Jack London Saloon Bar, but it used to be called the Heyman First and Last Chance. There's a photograph of him standing in that saloon. I thought that was interesting, how he would sit with his books everywhere, alcohol. And quickly, because we'll need to finish this so we can do our own talking, guess what he dies from? A dermatological condition. A lot of fun stuff about him, interesting, but he dies from Yaws. Yaws is a disease that's still available. It's from spirochete, kind of like syphilis, but not have to be contracted by sexual way, just from contact, usually carried by children. It starts with like an abscess that starts draining like an ulcer, leaves scars, and then later on associated with bone pain and tiredness, which is what he had. He died at the age of 40. That will be 1916, born 1876. He was aided in his popularity by when he was accepted for print. They just began with mechanical printing, which made it cheaper to print a newspaper and his stories. And he had uremia, which causes itching and a lot of failures with his kidneys, and he died using morphine to reduce its pain. He was also, we spoke about Joseph Trumpeldor. Well, he was a war correspondent, had to be saved. He was 4 times arrested by the Japanese because they said he's too close to the border with Manchuria, because he was not following exactly the orders. He wanted to transfer to the Russian side, to report from the Russian side. He thought they'll not prevent him from writing. But before he succeeded to do that, he was arrested the 4th time. Theodore Roosevelt, the president at that time, had to intervene to kind of free him. The reason he did that was he claimed that his Japanese assistant stole his fodder for his horse, so he beat him up. Anyway, his second wife was interesting. One time he fell, 1903, right before his divorce, and his wife would not, by the way, let him. He said she was so pure, such a Puritan. I guess they didn't have a sex life much. I mean, they had 2 daughters though, and this other girl, who was not raised by her parents, adopted. She was raised by one of his newspaper editors. So she took care of him. She was 6 years older than him, but she was much freer. He fell in love with her and married her in 1904. And she was, very adventurous, and he enjoyed life with her. They traveled everywhere with her, and she was really his soulmate. But they never succeeded to have children. Basically, one miscarriage, one died at birth, and she died with him from the same disease. They used to take a yacht trip to Hawaii and to other tropical countries where Yaws is prominent. It's treated, by the way, by penicillin, but as we both know, penicillin, the dedication will be invented about 20 years after. All right, dear friends, I don't know if it's still connecting, but have a lovely day. And if you ever rash, see a board certified dermatologist. All right, take care.